Druids don't just borrow nature's power, they are nature. They command storms, become beasts, and even reshape life itself. But where does their power truly come from? The Emerald Dream? Elune? Or much more? My name's Will, and today we're uncovering every secret behind Azeroth's most versatile guardians. So, Druidic power flows from three primordial sources. The Emerald Dream, which is kind of nature's blueprint, Elune's lunar magic, where balanced druids get their moonfire, and the wild god's blessings. Taken directly from WoWpedia, the first druids were taught by Cenarius, who himself was born of Elune and the ancient Malorne. Essentially, druidism is Azeroth's oldest family business, born of a perfect harmony between lunar magic and nature's balance, which is essentially a societal trend within Night Elves, especially between the love of Tyrande and Malfurion, Elune's high priestess and nature's wrathful hand. But remember that landscape of purity, the Emerald Dream? It isn't just a paradise, it's actually a living dimension tied to Azeroth's soul. So when Xavius corrupted it, druids like Malfurion had to fight fire with wildfire. And that's also why druids can balance healing and destruction, because nature isn't kind, it's unstoppable. And let's not forget Elune's role. Her tears birth the Well of Eternity, and her power fuels balanced druids, who channel both her gentle moon and the sun's ruthless arcane fury. But when her power mixes with wolf spirits, that's how we get the Worgen curse, and oh my, does that story get deep, and we are going to touch on it a little bit later. So, becoming a druid isn't like learning magic, it's a spiritual awakening. Novices train in Moonglade under the Cenarian Circle, but some factions break the rules. The Druids of the Flame, for example, embraced Ragnaroth's fire, while the Gilneans and Arugal merged Druidism with Goldrin's curse, actually managing to acquire the pack form, an uncontrollable form of pure rage, which was actually first used by the reckless Druids in War of the Ancients, who were unable to control themselves and turning on their brethren with no demons in sight, leading the pack form to be outcast. Now there really is so much Druid lore around their power, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the Worgens for just a moment, because just one artifact from the Druids created an entire race. And this is fleshed out a little bit more with the Scythe of Elune arc in Legion, revealing the fine line between Druidism and abomination. This artifact accidentally created the Worgen by merging Elune's light with Goldrin's rage, proving even nature's guardians can screw up catastrophically. Interestingly, the Scythe can also remove the curse. And a bit of extra lore here, in Grizzly Hills, the chest you recover in one of the Wolf People's quests is supposed to contain the Scythe of Elune, but early in-game lore has the Scythe in unknown positions. Arugal, SFK. In Duskwood, somehow Jitters knows. Grizzly Hills, Worgen Lumberjacks. And then Legion, your chicken is casually holding one of the most cursed objects that created an entirely new race. But to tie this back to Druid origins, this is the interesting part, because you lose yourself. Every shapeshift risks the Druid's identity, and of course especially feral forms, which is why the Druids of the Claw, like Brol Bearmantle, meditate for years to master bear instincts, and the Zandalari, they wrestle their lower beasts literally to earn their forms. Now with Druids having such a wild amount of spells, I thought this time we could go through some of the shapeshifts that were actually too wild for players, and of course how balanced druids tap into their cosmic forces. So the Druids of the Fang. These classic cultists in Wailing Caverns were merged with snake nightmares during their slumber in the Emerald Dream. Originally, they were a noble band of druids led by Naralax, reaching out to fix the Barrens, but unfortunately were bound to something much darker. We also have the Druids of the Antler. These druids solely worship Malorn, father of scenarios, and the player character is actually able to take on the form of the stag through their teachings and worship. And we'll get onto this in a little bit more depth shortly, but though we name them specializations in-game, the Druids of the Moon are the official name for Balance Druids. So the Cosmology of Balance Druids. You might think they are just Moon and Sun, but there's actually a little bit more. So of course you do have the Arcane from Sunfire tied to solar alignments, which is actually the same energy mages tap, but essentially raw and seasonal. This is related directly to the Tauren worship of the sun. And a small note here, as it's a little bit of an unexplained plot hole, Tauren paladins also get their power from the sun worship, but as holy light. So what discerns Tauren Sunfire from a druid? From a Tauren paladin? I'll let you guys help me in the comments with that though, as, you know, maybe I've missed something. Moving on though, we also have lunar magic, such as your Moonfire, which is directly channeled from a loon and stronger during full moons. And finally, that little bit extra that I was talking about, stellar magic. This would be things such as your Star Surge. It's a void adjacent energy from celestial bodies. You actually channel directly from the ancient Titan magics. Exactly what mages do. Now, I had a feeling this video would probably be quite long, but I also have a ton of scrapped content. So these are the secrets the Cenarian Circle tried to bury. The Emerald Dream. Now, I was trying to find a place for this in a video, whether a full focus on it or an addition for cut content, and I thought, well, the Druid video. So, the legendary Haven Games did a video on it back in the day, and I'll have it running in the background, as well as of course his channel in the description, while I show and kind of explain a little bit more as well. So back in the day, this map was intended to be added in vanilla, whether that was as a raid, questing hub, or personally my best guess, the equivalent of what we have, or what we did have as Moonglade for Druids. Now, of course, we did finally get it in Dragonflight, to some degree, but the Emerald Dream is a perfect, untouched replication of Azeroth. It is monumental. And a little extra fact here that I picked up on my research, the relationship between Druidism and Shamanism is actually very close, with accounts of Druid spirits communing with Shamans directly. You can find this in Stone Talon Mountains. There was also a lot of questions around player character Druids, since they're able to take on numerous forms. Well, here's the answer. The decision was to name them Druids of the Wild, trained by Fandral Staghelm, which means us the players learn our wider teachings from Fandral, who, by the way, for people that may not know, has some of the most impactful lore on the world we know today, and it's absolutely worth a video for himself. Finally, I'm sure you've heard of the cut playable class Rune Masters. These were planned to be a dwarf-centered class, similar to how Druids are Night Elf-centered, during the very early stages of World of Warcraft. This was inevitably scrapped and does make sense, as from Warcraft 1 to 3, in terms of lore perspective, Druids have a much larger stake in the lore than Rune Masters. Though, interestingly enough, there are power crossovers between Death Knights and Rune Masters, but we will touch on that in the DK vid. So to conclude, Druids draw power from life's heartbeat. But what about those who wield the elements themselves? Next time we ask, where do Shamans get their power? Spoiler, it involves less sunshine and much more raging tides. but please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and tell me which class's power source should we unearth next. I have been considering switching down to one video a week, and then kind of leaving the weekdays open for spontaneous pieces. But we're gonna see, because I do love posting, and I always look forward to the Saturdays and Tuesdays. But thank you all for, coming with me on this journey so far. It's been so fun, and you are all amazing. Please do have a lovely day.